What's the meaning of undue influence? The term undue influence means dominating the will of the other person to obtain unfair advantage over the other. Means getting more than what is due. According to section 16(1), a contract is said to be induced by undue influence if the relations subsisting between the parties are such that one of them is in a position to dominate the will of the other. There are two people, the relation is such that one person, on seeing it prima facie, the other person can be affected. So one, the dominant party uses that position. If there is a prima facie evidence, but he is using it also as an unfair advantage, then there is a undue influence. In all, where he holds a real or apparent authority, real or apparent, master and servant, parent and child, income tax officer and assessees, principal and a temporary teacher, right? So those circumstances there are real or apparent. Apparent means I'm seeing it, there is a relationship. Where he stands in a fiduciary relationship with the other. Fiduciary is on trust, something of a trust, nambikai. Fiduciary is something of a nambikai relationship. Trustee, beneficiary, spiritual advisor, guru, solicitor and client, the lawyer, guardian and ward. There is a trust relationship. Where he makes a contract with a person when mental capacity is temporarily or permanently affected by reason of age, illness, mental or bodily distress. Maybe a nurse and a patient, right? No presumption of undue influence if it is husband and wife, other than pardanasin. We'll see what is pardanasin. Landlord and tenant, creditor and debtor, poor Hindu widow agreed to pay interest at 100% per annum because she needed money to establish her right of maintenance. 100% per annum is very high. You always know, right? And even in our normal standards, 10%, 20%, 30%. 100% is very high. So the court says, lender was in a position to dominate the will of the widow. The widow was vulnerable, so this person can influence. There is a prima facie evidence, there is a undue influence possible. A devotee gifted as property to her spiritual guru to secure benefits to her soul in the next world. Held that spiritual guru was in position to dominate the will of the devotee. Manu Singh versus Mahadat Pandey. An illiterate old man, X, about 90 years, physically infirm and mentally in distress. He is physically okay but mentally a problem. Executed a gift deed of his properties in favor of Y, his nearest relative, who was looking after his daily needs and managing his cultivation. It was held that Y was in a position to dominate the will of X. Sher Singh versus Preeti Singh. What is the effect of undue influence? When consent to an agreement is caused by undue influence, the agreement is a contract voidable at the option of the party whose consent was so caused. Discretion of court, right? Discretion of court means court will decide something. Discretion means decision, their own prerogative, they can decide whatever. Discretion of court. Any such contract may be set aside either absolutely or if the party who was entitled to avoid it has received any benefit thereunder upon such terms and conditions as the court may seem just. When the consent to an agreement is caused by undue influence, the agreement is a contract voidable at the option of the party whose consent was so caused. Very simple, right? If you are under undue influence to do something, then you can make it voidable. A's son forged B's name to a promissory note. B, under threat of prosecuting A's son, obtains a bond from A for the amount of forged note. B sues on this bond, court may set aside the bond because it is obtained under undue influence. A money lender advances 10,000 to B, an agriculturist, and by undue influence induces B to execute a bond of 20,000 with the interest of 6% per month. That is very high, right? 12 into 6 is 48% per annum. He only got 10,000, but he is writing it as 20,000. Court may set the bond aside after ordering B to repay the 10,000 with extra money, right? With such interest as may seem just a normal bank interest or normal money lender interest, not the 48% interest. On whom the burden of proof lies? Who has to prove? When a contract is avoided on the ground of undue influence, the liabilities of dominant party and weaker party to prove are as under. The weaker party who was influenced has to prove that the other party was in a position to dominate the will. First of all, he is able to dominate. He has to prove that first. Second, that the other party actually used his influence to obtain an unfair advantage. First of all, utilizing undue is different, but he was trying to have an unfair advantage. Unfair advantage means one side little heavy oriented towards a bigger party. That the transaction is inconsiderable, unreasonable. You have to say it is unreasonable. You have to prove. In case of unconscionable transaction, the dominant party has proved that such contract was not induced by undue influence. What is unconscionable in transaction? If the dominant party makes an exorbitant profit. We saw that, right? 100% per annum, 48%. The person got 20,000 instead of 10,000. Those things are all called unconscionable transactions. X was in need of money, great need of money, urgent need. The market rate of interest prevailing at that time was 15% to 24%. A lender agreed to grant the loan at say 30% because of the stringency in the money market. More money, more interest. This cannot be called unconscionable transaction merely because of an unusual high rate. If the lender agreed to grant the loan at a rate which is so high, even if there is a money crunch, if he is offering 100%, it is not acceptable, though it is called unconscionable. But this case, 30% is okay because there is a money crunch, little high is okay, not very high. How can presumption of undue influence be rebutted? Rebuttal means the denial. How does the dominant party deny? I have not used undue influence. Rebuttal, denying, right? The presumption of undue influence can be rebutted by showing. So I did not use undue influence. How? saying to the weaker party, saying all facts. Yeah, see, this is what it is. You have to agree because of so and so reasons. It's valid reason, then it's okay. Second point, price was adequate. Instead of 10,000, if he is paying 8,000, 9,000, it's okay. It's not 1,000 rupees or 500 rupees. Then it is inadequate. That the weaker party was in receipt of complete and independent advice before entering into the contract. Before going to that person who is doing undue influence, you go to a third party or independent person, ask him whether this transaction is okay. In that case, there is no undue influence. What is a parda nasin? Parda nasin, the woman who observes complete seclusion, who does not come into contact with people other than her family members, is called a parda nasin woman. What is the position of contracts with parda nasin woman? Legal presumption is a contract with a parda nasin woman is presumed to have been infused by undue influence. Very clear. If you are entering into a contract, you have a problem. Burden of proof is the other party who enters into a contract with parda nasin woman must prove made full disclosure of all facts to her. She told all facts to the person, to the lady, that she understood the contracts and implication of the contract. She has understood, right? That she was in receipt of complete and independent advice before entering into the contract. She took another advice. So that is all proof enough. We have not used the undue influence against parda nasin woman. Comparison between coercion and undue influence. What is difference between undue influence and coercion? What is the similarity? In case of both coercion and undue influence, the consent is not free and the contract is voidable at the option of aggrieved party. In case of both coercion and undue influence, the consent is not free. Okay, and both are made voidable at the option of the aggrieved party. What is the difference? The similarity we have seen. What is the difference? Coercion, the relationship. Coercion, the parties to a contract may be or may not be related. But in case of undue influence, you are related by some method, official, personal, some method. Consent. The consent is obtained by giving a threat. There it is by dominating the will. Here the pressure is physical, there it is mental, moral. Who can exercise coercion? It can be exercised by even by a stranger. There it is not by a stranger but party always to the contract. Party to a contract is part of the contract. Restoration of benefit. The aggrieved party has to restore the benefit received under section 24. The party avoiding the contract may or may not return the benefit under section 19A. That's the idea. Here he has to restore, there is no need to restore. Presumption. Coercion has to be proved by the party alleging. There is no presumption. Law doesn't presume. It has to be proved beyond doubt. It may be presumed by law under certain circumstances. In case of undue influence, the party against whom such presumptions lies must disprove it. What is the nature of liability in case of coercion? The party committing the crime may be punishable under Indian Penal Code. In the case of undue influence, it doesn't involve any criminal liability. Here it is because physical pressure there is a criminal liability. There is no physical pressure, so no criminal conspiracy, criminal liability.